Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. This is Tom O'Connor, and we're only a week away from Jazz Fest New Orleans. So this will be the last time I'll have you. I'm like the guys about to go around the back end of the moon. You won't hear from me for the next 2 weeks after we wrap this one up. Um, and I'm really, really happy today, though, to have with me Jonathan Rowe is on your business card. You prefer John or Jonathan?
John.
John? John.
Well, yeah, most people call me John, but I'll answer to either. So,
Cool. Uh, Many of you probably know John. In fact, I was just astonished when he told me before we started here that um, he's been the founder and the CEO, of course, of PinPoint Labs. You've been in business for 20 years. PinPoint's been
mm,
around for 20 years. I mean,
yeah,
uh, you know, I guess my sense, as you get older, your sense of
your
time
sense of
gets,
time.
yeah. No, no, no. That was
Yeah,
just last week, wasn't it?
yeah.
But for those of you who are as chronologically challenged as I am, and the reason I wanted to talk to John today is because he's been around a long time in this business, and some of you may remember a product called Law, um, which came about. Actually, now correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Law a product of the very first ICE company? Weren't you the original ICE?
Yeah, so image capture engineering, or ICE, which we were born out of a
Yeah.
copy shop essentially. So
No kidding.
um yeah, so the law product was something, it was a scanning app that I built for our service bureau in Omaha, because we couldn't really find anything that worked the way we wanted. And
Right.
so
Well, and
that was,
that's part of
yeah,
the discussion, I guess, is there wasn't a whole lot around back then, right?
there
I mean,
really wasn't. There were a couple, but they were, pretty expensive, click based, and there was no chance I could have cross-trained one of our copy operators to use them. You really had to have a pretty good PC depth, I guess you would say, to run those platforms.
yeah. And what year was that? So when did you start Law? Because it took the business by storm, as I recall. I don't know if you looked at it quite the same way when you're trying to start up a product.
Yeah, well, I never had any intentions of, of selling it commercially, but I coded law in '95, about the second quarter. Within about 4 or 5 months, I had it running our scanning operations internally. But then we had a sister shop from Kansas City that was asked us what we're using, and the owner was like, "Oh, well, we built our own. John built one for us." And he goes, "Can I?" He goes, "Can I come look at it?" So this is sprung on me. This guy from Kansas City is going to come up and check out the app that I built, and I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "I don't know. He just thinks it sounds interesting."
You need something,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, he needs something. Well, I mean, by the time it was over, by the end of the day, I mean, even within a few hours, he goes, "This is the best thing on the market. This is the best thing I've seen for doing this kind of work. I'm going to buy it." And so I went to Mark and was like, "He wants to buy this. Is that something we're even going to consider?" It's like I need another responsibility, like a hole in the head, right? It's like, okay, let's commercial, let's package this up and sell it to people. But obviously, we did end up doing that as well as
Yeah, and
as
it was
well
it
as
was widely
it.
successful. By we
Yeah,
just talked about it. By 2007, Lexus bought it, right? LexisNexis acquired the
yeah,
product. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And now PinPoint, the company you founded and are running now, you're primarily a collection services. It says you've got a forensics background and are really concerned with going out and getting the data at the source.
Right. It's really about defensible collections. When I started this company, it was to provide digital forensic collections and investigations. And another gentleman, Jamie, who's one of our partners, and still with us, heads up development. Well, we were out there doing the collections, and it was highly obnoxious because we really didn't want to start another software company, but the options for defensively collecting eDiscovery were really not great. You had like FTK and Encase for imaging hard drives, but when it came to copying, hundreds of thousands of files off of a server, those products weren't really that great. But your options were dragging and dropping or using Robocopy, which wouldn't
Ooh,
hash verify. There was no chain of custody.
RoboCopy. Ooh, that
It
sent a
didn't
shiver
support,
up my
I
back.
know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. that actually is what helped launch the company because the very first version of Safe Copy, which has been wildly successful over the years, or decades now, I should say, it was just a UI for robocopy, so people didn't have to create
Ah,
batch scripts. They could just drag and drop their sources, pick a
yep,
target, check, yes, I want to hash verify. So we just removed a lot of the nightmare people had with robocopy, right?
right,
And so
right.
we did eventually build our own copy engine, which was way better than robocopy. But the very first thing was just that it was just a highly obnoxious way to work with robocopy was having to, build all the batch scripts and get everything set up the way you want it. So,
Yeah.
but that's how we got started was just going, we need better collection tools in the e-discovery space that are defensible with a chain of custody, hash verified, all that. And now that's turned into multiple platforms and all different sources that constantly change over the years, right? There's always the next thing. There was SharePoint Collector, and then there was OneDrive and Box and Dropbox, and now there's mobile devices. And so it was just where our discovery exists, whether it was paper back when I first started building apps to now where it's everywhere in all different kinds of formats. It's always a challenge to figure out a defensible way to collect the discovery wherever it might sit.
So, and that's really what I'm interested in is your perspective. So we're talking 1995. Um, Not a whole lot of lawyers technologically savvy back then, right?
Right.
If not, in fact, technologically adverse.
Mm.
Um, and and now we've come to a point where you know open AI is being touted as the solution to everything. It's the magic wand. It's
Uh,
Merlin's chalice. It's gonna it's gonna do everything
yeah.
for you. In fact, it's even gonna we're gonna lose our jobs. We're all gonna lose our jobs, and you don't need us to do anything because AI is gonna do it all. Um, and as I said when we were talking earlier, they've even gone so far as to say the latest go round of this will be the end of the billable hour. The phrase I've heard every year since they invented the ballpoint pen, and a
Yeah.
new technology came out. Every new technology was going to, but somehow those lawyers are
There's
crafty
still
enough to make sure that they know a way to keep it
there's still a way
alive.
to find a billable hour in it somewhere, right? So
So what's your sense? And even you mentioned tar a minute ago. Even when tar was introduced, there wasn't a real great rush to embrace it by the attorneys. There was a lot of proving, and people like Maura Grossman, uh, Craig Ball, a couple of the other commentators in our space were Ralph Losey having to convince people that this is technology that will work for you. Now everybody's like they can't get enough AI fast enough, right?
mhm.
There's been a rush to embrace AI. So, what have you seen in those intervening years? I mean, 95 isn't really all that long ago in terms of the great scope of things. Um,
Mhm.
and I guess what's it been? Chat GBT has been around. I want to
About
say.
three.
I was
It's
going to say
been, but is it 3 years or 4 years? I mean, coming up
I,
in the
I was
fall.
going
It
to
was in
say
the
under
fall,
five.
wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a really small window to
yeah.
to embrace it. Um, do you get the feeling that lawyers are doing this because we've just got a new generation of lawyers who understand technology? Is it because it's the new shiny bright tool? Is it? And my perspective has often been, well, we kind of dropped the ball with tar, and we don't want to do that again. We want to make sure that we're seen as being technologically savvy. Um, what's your take on how we've gone from 1995 to what they want to buy this really?
Yeah. Well, and the adoption rate in the legal tech space is typically really slow. I mean,
Yes.
I remember, back in the day of development law thinking, because I envisioned that for years. That wasn't like one day I woke up and go, oh, what about this imaging thing? Like I wanted for years back when I was working at law firms in the 80s and then Knight Ridder, I had this plan, but none of the technology existed to really, put it into play. Well, it really had, by mid 90s. And so what happened, what we saw was even with all of that, tell that backstory because I was so excited when I delivered my first project on CDs with images, and we loaded it up in summation. In fact, they had to buy summation. I became a summation certified trainer to
Oh,
give them summation because they wanted to do imaging, but they didn't have a platform. But they did
yeah,
like summation. They did like summation transcripts, and
yeah.
they used it for that.
That
Omaha
might have
was
that.
very,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that might have been
you're
where we
fine.
met because I was in on that
A
SCT thing.
trainer.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, because we were. Yeah, I met a lot of people. That's probably where we met out in San Francisco at
yeah.
the
We'd all go out for the
one of
big
the
kumbaya
yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, the Bloomin' Onion. I think it was the Bloomin' Onion. What was that
Yeah,
place? There was some restaurant. I think it was called like a Bloomin'
the
Onion or
blooming
something like
onion.
that.
Yeah,
But
the garlic place up on the top of the hill
it
there.
was amazing. It was amazing. But yeah, I met a lot of I mean, great people out there that are still, in the space. And I
Yeah,
got that. I did all of that because back then attorneys' challenges were, okay, well, I'm using this for transcripts and maybe decoding in a database, but now I want to add my images to my collection so I don't have to go, retrieve the paper.
yeah,
And one of the first things I did, I was so excited. I delivered this, job to this firm. They were using summation, showing them how the image came up, and I was so excited to see the reaction on the attorney's face, right? Like, oh, somebody didn't have to go to the records room and bring back a file. And you know what they did? I was looking for that excitement. It was like, how do I print this out? How do I print this off? But I was like, no, no, it's right there in your screen. It's like I need the paper. I want to mark on it.
yeah.
Which in some ways I can totally relate to because there's times I like to have paper.
So are we
Um,
at that same
so
inflection point with AI? Like everybody thinks it's really cool, but they're really not sure how they're going to use it. They're not even really sure what I tell sometimes we mentioned this earlier too. People say to me, I'm using AI. I said, that's like telling me you listen to music.
it's
Like,
like, yeah, what does it have to do with
yeah,
anything?
I need
Yeah,
to know what you're doing.
it
What
is.
bucket are you
Well, and
working
I
in?
think Yeah, and I think that no, to answer your other question on that story was that, what happened to billable time? I think there's a good comparison to go, okay, well, we all worked in records room at well, a lot of us worked in the records room when paper was king and, before imaging and digitizing things. And, that was a whole infrastructure of people who got paid essentially, and that was billable time when somebody was walking around the office, basically looking for something, right?
Yep.
Whether it's, been misplaced or not, it still, could be billable time.
Where's that
And
binder? Somebody took that
where's the
binder off the
binder?
shelf.
Where's
Yeah.
it gone? It might be at their house, it might be in the car. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and spent entire weekends turning records rooms upside down to find out that the file was, somewhere, right? They ended up finding it. But the point is that hourly time is put, that billable time. We think, okay, well, when we went to imaging, when we went to storing things digitally, people could say, well, the threat of not having that billable time, but again, like you said, we found a way, right? We find other areas, and then you get into eDiscovery and you go, okay, well, again, we're digital, we're pulling things up on our computer. And so I think to address that first question of, billable time, will there still be billable time? As this technology evolves, we still find, right? Like we're talking about, there's still, what happened when not even AI or TAR, when attorneys got the ability to do document creation and assembly, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm calling with this matter. I need a document for X. And think about that. I mean, nowadays, even before AI or any high tech stuff, you could create 80% of a document, right? 90% of something, right? A contract,
Yeah.
NDA, MNDA, whatever, and fill in the blanks, right? Well, what do you do about billable time, right? With something like that. Well, what happens now with AI when it even goes the next step, right? And it creates it creates even more of it, or it's more intelligent, right, about how it does it, or it can create a more
Can you
variation.
excuse me just 1 second? I'm sorry. The UPS guy is banging on my door. I must need to
No
sign for something
worries.
really important. I'll be right back.
No worries. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if he'll cut this part. We could talk about Tom and all the fun stories, interactions we've had with him through the years. Or, yeah, I don't know. What a great guy. I better say something nice. If I say something mean, then he might cut it out. But if I say stuff nice, then maybe he'll keep this in. But
Sorry.
no
I
worries.
don't know what sort of gold bullion is being shipped to me that they make me sign for it. You know.
Be careful. Yeah, be careful. Be careful of the package, right? So you never know. You never know with the people you know down there and all your associate. Who knows
In
what's
New
gonna
Orleans. You know,
what's gonna nobody knows what's gonna show up at your door.
well, you know
So,
what it is. I mentioned
it's-
Jazz Fest. I've got people coming to Jazz Fest from all over, not just this country, but I actually have from other countries, Canada. You know, the real test of friendship these days. Can I ship this to your house so I don't have to
uh,
worry about it? I'm going, oh yeah, sure, yeah, because the government doesn't worry about stuff being shipped by one person from a foreign country to somebody else in the United States. No, that won't attract any attention.
right. Not at all. Not at all. No problem.
Oh God. So, anyways, I'm sorry to have
Alrighty.
interrupted you there. Um, I
Oh no,
mean,
you're fine. You were talking about a yeah. So we were leave off with like document creation, and you know that that's even like there's all different levels in the law firm where AI is going to get used. I think your question was, do we think it's like when they first, we're looking at an image, being able to search and pull up an image, or about tar, when we were first, getting into tar, are we at that point with AI where they're just maybe skimming the surface, don't really, know exactly how to use it? Or, but I think that, one of the reasons that AI is the AI adoption is so much quicker than like trying to get people to use tar back in the day was all of the different areas people are finding a use for it, right? So it's not like they have this one,
right.
they didn't get this one utility that, oh, it's really better at expanding your searches. You can do concept searching instead of this thing. What they found was somebody dropped this thing off in their lap and everything they throw at it, it does it, and I think that's what happened, not just in the legal space, but with people in general was whether I'm planning a trip to New Orleans or I'm trying to look up a great recipe for dinner, or I need help responding to this message, or it's like, or I need help with my homework. They found a friend that
I'm
has all
laughing
of the
because
specialty.
yeah, I'm laughing because Browning Marian, our old friend Browning Marian, used to say
Yep.
this. He would shake his head and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, it's all really cool stuff." He said, "But lawyers think that they're really well versed in search technology because they went on Google and found a Chinese restaurant in San Francisco."
Oh, yeah,
Right? He said,
yeah.
yes, that is great. And it is doing all those things. But at some point, you still have to know it at least well enough to explain it to a judge if somebody challenges it. And I think
Oh,
that's
good
where the
point.
offset is now. You see all these hallucination cases in legal research. Most of those come about because people just aren't checking the sites. Like, come on, man.
That's yeah, and that happens with any kind of tech. That tech can also be a crutch, right? So
Exactly.
anytime that we release, relinquish some kind of, let's say, control, because you can still look at it, but something else is doing the process, right? Something else is doing the work. It's always going to be, especially when that thing kicks out potentially dozens of pages of stuff, right? People are like, it's just natural for someone to go,
Okay, that looks. They skim the
oh,
first
I
couple
glanced
pages,
through it.
right?
They
Yeah.
skim it and they go, they're so impressed that it did it in the first place, number one. Second, that it actually looks halfway intelligent. Third is, wow, this is writing potentially better than I could do, or it would
Yeah.
take me days to do. So they get it. it's a, it's kind of a romantic moment to go, oh my gosh, did this really just happen?
You know, it reminds me of
So.
Judge Grimm, Judge Paul Grimm, who's retired now, of course, from Maryland.
Mhm.
But he used to say when he was discussing some of the rules, he said it's like reading the rules. Everybody can cite Rule 26E, and maybe they can cite Rule 26E2. He said, but once you get down to 26E2, Roman numeral 3, small a, he said, that's really yada, yada, yada land. That's Rule
Yeah,
26E2, yada, yada, yada. I haven't really looked at it.
I
I've
haven't really looked at that. Yeah.
yeah. And so I think you're right. I think they maybe look at the first couple of pages and wow, this looks good. Yeah, the sites are
Hmm.
all in the right format and
Hmm.
without stopping to think, no, they're complete
They're
fabrication.
completely off.
Yeah.
And that's just a learn, it's a learning curve. And I know you've done a great job and the conferences are doing a great job. And it's not just that, it's common sense. Okay. And newsflash, it will continue to happen because as the more people use it, they're going to it's 2 o'clock in the morning. They've been working for 3 days straight. They're trying to get this thing done to get it filed in time. And it's going to happen. They, even when they probably know that they should, even when they know they should look at it, there are going to be times where it still happens. They're going
Yeah.
to put, it is going to happen. Doesn't mean that, the process should be avoided. No, it
No,
means
and it's not
yeah,
malicious. Like you said,
it's
it's
not,
just
yeah,
yeah.
they're
Yeah.
just, they should have done a better job, checking. But I know that they're also going to put guardrails in place where it's going to be a lot less likely for that to happen
Yeah.
because they're going to check those citations against, real data and put some kind of guardrails in there where people will do it less and less. I mean, they already are, I believe, from what I've heard, but it'd be
Oh yeah.
stupid not. It'd be
Yeah.
stupid not to because
And that's
that's yeah.
from your
So
perspective, you went through that with the early days of scanning. I mean, is that a painful procedure to get people to stop and take a look until it gets better, or is it just something that's going to naturally happen? I mean, what's your
well, what's insanely painful, I'm sure you remember these days, and it kind of relates to this is when oh, this is a good correlation between not checking your work and relying too much on it. Is if you remember back when people started first OCRing images, right? So they were extracting the text off of the image.
yes,
We're spoiled nowadays from getting most of our text from a native file or an email where it's exactly what was in there. As for those of us who can remember when people would OCR documents that weren't that good, they weren't that clean, they were fourth, fifth generation copies, and the OCR was not very good at all. It was maybe 60, 70%,
yeah,
and sometimes worse. Well, what scared me was when I would be talking to a firm and they'd say, well, we just used the OCR search to determine whether or not there was something relevant. I was like, that a bunch of those documents were junk and
it's
the
just garbage.
OCR is not
Yeah,
as garbage, it's not worth it. And they're like, okay, well, they were like, well, for the matter of time and this and that. I said, you talk about some liability as going, okay, one of those critical documents,
yeah, you're just going to miss one,
didn't
right?
OCR well, and
Yeah,
so you didn't even. I said, didn't and you find out that firms weren't going there with a second pair of eyes and actually looking through those boxes. So they're searching, 50 or 100 boxes of documents,
that's
hoping that it would hit, hoping that the OCR was right on
yeah,
that particular document.
yeah,
And so I think that we went through that with TAR. We're going to go through that with AI in the sense of, is there anybody checking this stuff? I
yeah.
mean, it's not a perfect tech. The summaries it writes are not always going to be accurate to what was actually going on.
That's what I tell people.
You know,
Yeah, it's great.
so I
Yeah,
think
you've cut through a whole bunch of documents really fast or assemble the document really quick. You got to put eyeballs on it. Somebody's still
yeah,
got to QC it. Remember,
they
especially
still
in
gotta
federal
look.
court, you're signing an affidavit that says that what you've submitted is true and accurate to the best of your
It's true and
knowledge.
accurate. Yeah,
Yeah, you're violating a court rule if you haven't done that, and I think that's what's gonna make people stand up. We're already seeing court cases to that effect.
they do that.
I said in a column a few years ago. I still say it all the time. AI should keep the attorney in AI. You know, Yeah, it's
Yeah,
artificial intelligence, but we also need some attorney intelligence in there,
yeah,
or
for
else
sure.
it's going to be a problem. Well,
Yeah,
John, I appreciate your taking the time. I love talking to
yeah,
people who've been, it's, I guess my
they've
point
been
is,
in it.
well, this isn't our first rodeo. You know,
No, no, no.
we've been
We've seen
around
this
technology.
happen
Yeah,
numerous. We've seen this kind of stuff happen in waves, over the
yeah,
years, and we've seen a very similar cycle with it as far as the adoption rate. I think the reason that a lot of people are talking about AI is that we haven't seen any. I've been at this over 30 years. If you count my time at firms and stuff, almost 40 probably. But um,
and we haven't
I
seen
think
anything get this good this fast,
I don't.
right?
We've never seen anything in all of that time that it got adopted. That got adopted so rapidly,
Yeah,
and we aren't sitting there trying to convince the legal community why it's good. Where people are trying to rein them back going
that's right.
because they're running too fast.
Slow
Well,
down a little bit. Just slow down.
think of any technology in our time in this space where it wasn't trying to educate them to improve the processes. You're trying to slow them down a bit to go, you need to think about what's happening. So
Stay in
I
your
think
lane.
I think I think that's what makes it a different conversation for those who've been in it for a while is people just dove in, and it's just, it just
Which
gained
is
so
kind
much
of
momentum so
surprising to those
fast.
of us who've been
So
around for a while, who are
yeah,
used to a little bit more reluctance and take your time. No, it's like, whoa,
yeah.
all right.
But it
Cool.
just went, full bore. But
So,
no,
yeah.
this was a pleasure. Yeah, this was it's always good to, like you said, to talk to other people. No matter how many times we've had conversations, we always seem to find some other angle or
Oh, yeah.
something to
Yeah. So
brainstorm on.
when will I
So
see you in person again? You going to be hitting any of the conferences coming up this year? Anything else? We saw each
I
other
don't know.
in
But yeah,
Florida. Yeah.
Florida UF Law. Yeah, we'll be going to some stuff coming up. We'll have to. Yeah, we're deciding on what's on the calendar for the rest of the year.
I
But yeah,
usually go to ILTA.
you and I will talk. You and I will, I'm sure, figure out one way. Even if I need an excuse to
Come
head
to New
your way,
Orleans? Just
to come to New Orleans, there's always
there you go.
yeah,
There
that's
you go.
always a fun place to head and get together. So,
All right.
but yeah, thanks again. Thanks everybody for watching, and appreciate the time, Tom,
My
as
pleasure.
always.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, you too.